Hey friends, I know the last few weeks have been kind of crazy. You've seen this slow ramp up, at least since the election, of the ATF kind of flexing his muscles a little bit. Look back at the polymer 80 issues and the stabilizing brace issues. And I say issues, those are topics that the ATF is bringing up and again, flexing on. What I wanted to do is address the letters to the notice that the ATF put out last week concerning stabilizing braces. I feel like if we do nothing, we know we're not going to get anything. I know a lot of people have the opinion that the letters to the ATF don't make a difference. I don't believe that. I believe that with the green tip ammo issue, that was somewhat, to me, resolved with feedback from you and I. So yes, while it seems the ATF is going to do whatever they want to do, again, if we don't try something, we're only guaranteed one thing, failure, and that the ATF will in fact win in this case. We can win this. What we need to do is we have to effectively and comprehensively across the board send a very clear message and a professional message. I know the ATF is extremely petty. There's some things that I'll point out in a later video I'll probably do tomorrow about how petty the ATF is in this notice that they put out regarding stabilizing braces. And my first reaction is to be equally petty and to be equally outraged and to drop four-letter words and F-bombs. We can't do that. It gives them the excuse and the reason to dismiss whatever letters that we put out there. We can't do that. We can't play into their trap. They want us to do that. They put petty words into their notice to enrage people, to get them mad, and to get the constitutionalists and people who truly believe in the Second Amendment to be enraged so that they can immediately go, what? This one's got curse words, doesn't count. Let's don't do that. What I've done is, and I'm going to share with you guys my letter today, and I'll actually post where you guys can go out there and look at it. Rob parts of my letter or do whatever you want, but I'm going to explain why I put some things in here. This is my letter. The recent notice by the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosive Bureau on 12/18/20 titled Objective Factors for Classifying Weapons with Stabilizing Braces is as vague and arbitrary as it is overreaching. With absolutely zero definable factors in the notice put out, it's unclear if the BATFE has shifted its focus from public safety to controlling commerce. It doesn't appear that the BATFE has any real intention of providing law-abiding Americans actual definable characteristics as to how their firearms with stabilizing braces will be classified by the BATFE. All that is clear based on your 12/18/20 notice is that the BATFE may or may not determine that my stabilizer brace equipped firearm is an illegal SBR based on the following: how experienced or inexperienced of a shooter I am, how long or short my arms are, how strong or weak I am, how closely my brace resembles a stock, whether my brace is made of soft or hard rubber, how I hold my firearm when accurately hitting my target, how good or bad my eyes are when using optics. These are things that I pull directly from the arbitrary, open-ended factors that the BATFE has put in this actual notice. I'll continue. The BATFE lists all these factors as things you'll consider at whichever point you classify my stabilizer brace equipped firearm, but you have zero definable parameters. For example, if measurements and weights will be used in your factors for classification, it'd be helpful in a court of law to prosecute a person violating your new standards if the courts know what your new parameters are. With the ambiguous, undefined factors you casually and randomly list, no criminal could ever be prosecuted in a court of law because a judge and jury will need to know what made that stabilizer brace equipped firearm an SBR, and no one could answer that question because you have not defined it. In comparison, speed limits are posted so that police know when to give a speeding ticket. If law enforcement used the BATFE's method used in this notice to give speeding tickets, no speeding ticket would ever be given and no judge or jury would ever convict a person of speeding because technically no law was ever broken because none were ever defined. Which brings me to your jobs. Your jobs are public safety, not lawmaking. You don't make laws. Congress does. If Congress chooses to put forth a bill that a sitting president signs into law that doesn't infringe upon my Second Amendment rights, I'm happy to abide by it. Furthermore, with over 4 million stabilizing braces being present throughout the United States, crimes involving them are still non-existent. Combining the fact that 4 million braces exist without increasing or affecting crime with the fact that the BATFE is willing to classify across the board every single one of those 4 million AR pistols as strictly regulated SBRs, per the BATF notice, it would seem to me that the BATFE has made the case to remove SBRs from the NFA altogether. Surely the BATFE has done extensive research on the lack of impact that SBRs have had on crime to come to the conclusion that potentially adding over 4 million more SBRs to the general public would have no adverse effect on crime and public safety. Knowing the BATFE's primary focus is on public safety, we're excited to see the BATFE's further work on removing SBRs from the NFA using your own logic and reasoning behind willingly welcoming over 4 million more new SBRs to the current numbers. In closing, if the BATFE is serious about public safety as it relates to stabilizer brace firearms, you will define the open-ended factors you list in your 12/18/20 notice and present them to Congress to consider when writing a new bill for possible passage into law. Otherwise, your current efforts appear to be nothing more than childish outrage at accessory manufacturers who you have personal issues with that the courts will only use on a case-by-case basis when desperately looking for other charges to place on suspected criminals. Finally, how can you apply the law equally when the law is admittedly written to treat each person differently? Guys, I wrote all of this for particular reasons. One, I list the bullet points on here and I simply interpret what they wrote down there as their factors to show how stupid and ambiguous these actual things are. By writing them out the way you would actually read them and interpret what they wrote makes them look even more stupid. I also wanted to point out the ridiculous nature of having rules that are not written. If the ATF is serious about prosecuting people and looking out for the Americans' public safety, and I say that very facetiously, if that's truly what they stand behind as being what their intent and that what they stand for, then the writing of this document means that no criminal will ever be convicted of any crime of having an illegal SBR if it in fact has a stabilizing brace on it, because you have not defined that. This can't stand up in a court of law. You have to define these things for a prosecutor to be able to have something to throw at somebody. You've given them nothing. If nothing else, you've given them the ability now to throw all these cases out of court. So you've done less to protect public safety and more to harm public safety if there truly is a criminal that needs to be convicted, and you need to have actual rules defined in order to convict them. Otherwise, again, you're throwing these cases out of court. I also wanted to point out that their jobs are clearly not to make laws, and that I'm fine with following the law if the law is presented to us Americans as they are written and intended to be written in the Constitution. If we follow those rules in making these laws, I'm happy to follow it. I also wanted to point out that if these guys are okay with just carte blanche making 4 million firearms equipped with stabilizer braces, SBRs, overnight, at no charge whatsoever. See, before, we would have said they're doing this for the money. Now they've waived the money. So if they're okay with doing that and just welcoming in 4 million new SBRs, then clearly SBRs are not a problem. So why are they on the NFA? Let's get them off. Our founding fathers did some remarkable stuff whenever they framed everything in the Constitution. They did even more remarkable things whenever they put forth the Bill of Rights and ratified it. The thing that guides me as a person, and I mean this, I'm getting personal here. The thing that guides me more than anything else, more than money, power, or anything like that, is fairness. I can't stand to see anybody treated unfairly. I can't stand that. That is one thing that has driven me since I've been a little boy. And the fact that the ATF is admitting through these factors that the law will not be administered fairly and across the board and equally to every single American out there. They are admitting in this document, by leaving it open-ended and arbitrary like this, that the law, as they see it, is going to be open to interpretation. And each individual American, depending on how tall they are, how short they are, how strong they are, how weak they are, how good your eyes are, how bad your eyes are, each individual American will be treated differently and not equally, because you're not setting a law that treats every person equally. You're saying that you're willing to bend and move and frame that law differently based on that individual person. And that leads to corruption, because that leaves it open to interpretation, and that means that they can do whatever they want to whomever they want.